I guess my question would be, do you offer facilitation training so we can possibly train some of our, I guess, community members to do what you do and encourage our youth some more?
We can do a little bit of that. The core of everything YOUCAN does is actually based in conflict resolution, that type of training. As far as training people to do the youth work, probably not, to be honest with you. Now, that being said, I am all for coming to different communities and really trying to look at some of that strategy behind some of this work. But we're not an actual training facility for people to work with youth. We work with youth and we try to train the young people up into being good employees, so to speak. So yeah.
I'll just add quickly. NorQuest College has a community support worker program, and it's been very successful. We're reconfiguring it right now, but it's continuing to run, and so maybe I would recommend looking at whether it's NorQuest College or some of the other colleges that have programs in place, and many of them are geared directly towards these types of positions to work with youth and with the community.
An observation, then a question arising out of it. I'm an ex-Albertan who lives in Vancouver now, and when I come back here, I'm astonished by the level of services, or almost a kind of European level of public services that exists in Alberta. Who knows if that's going to last with changing fiscal realities, et cetera, but it just hits me like a ton of bricks. Most places, most other provinces in the Western Canada have got to be a little tighter and more efficient. And I give a good example of that. In Vancouver, we have an organization called Blade Runners, which seems to be a kind of short circuit between a lot of what you're doing. It takes at-risk kids in the downtown east side and directly mentors and couples them with the construction industry and integrates them into trades. And it's been running quite a few years. I think it's a very efficient model. In some ways, it takes frontline social services, training, et cetera, and folds it into one model. I just wonder if any of you know about it or have comments on that approach.
When we were looking at the creation of the Alberta Aboriginal Construction Career Centres, when we looked at Saskatchewan, very successful model, that's a fully funded model. Basically, we came back to Alberta and recognized what you were saying, that we didn't think we could go to government and ask them to fully fund it. Industry is saying, okay, we'll be a partner in this. So we are hoping that we are creating more sustainable frameworks that can last and that can collaborate with the community. That's not to say that we can't look to what others have done as well. So the efficiency is very much a key part to this, absolutely, without a doubt. Having said that, I can also go back to those learners in Saskatchewan. You can take the total amount that they've invested, divided by the number of placements they've had, and they've had some pretty good success for every dollar invested, and I think that's what the community wants to see. So that's something we're going to be tracking here in Alberta as well. And the notion that we're going to go after different funding sources is also key.
And yeah, actually, Blade Runners, we're aware of them. With some of our research, we looked into them. I didn't get an opportunity to go and chat with them face to face. I'd love to, though, because I've always just seen great things come out of there. A big thing for us is that, and you're right, in Alberta there is a lot of stuff happening. There's a lot of stuff going on. I think that there's a lot of programs for the trades. What I think is lacking, and this is only because of what we're seeing with our young people, is that there's nothing there for laborers. And you can make a good career out of being a laborer, but realistically, even to get into the trades, you have to start as a laborer. And so that's where we are concerned, that's where we think that there's a bit of a gap, is really, we're actually talking to a few people right now, and I'd love to, if Gary's still here, I'd love to talk to Gary about the idea of who we can talk to, who he knows, and I think Patrick can help too, as far as really starting a laborer training center. Literally teaching them how to sweep floors, teaching these young people how to move dirt from one pile to another. I mean, some basic stuff that I think we need to do. But Blade Runners is fantastic, great organization. So yeah, definitely check them out.
My question is to Patrick. In your Aboriginal Construction Career Center, the whole package? Do you have a component in there that helps the young Aboriginal youth and prospective employees, helps them address racism? In Lethbridge, there isn't a system that they can go to address those kinds of issues, because yes, there is a big pool of unskilled labor, but we need to make sure their rights are protected as well. A lot of them come to us and they say we get called the chief, and they just get really discriminated against, and they don't know who to go to. And so one strategy we've started utilizing is, I just go to the trade guy and I tell them I'm going to take this matter to the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce, boycott you from finishing the projects, because that racism isn't condoned. And so that's a big problem we're addressing in Lethbridge with our labor, unskilled youth population. And I believe I've got my bachelor's of management degree with a major in human resources. So I know the human rights, and I've been able to shut down a few offices in Lethbridge in my 22 years of living there, telling them, speaking up for them. And I believe with our youth, we really need to have that advocacy to speak up for them and teach them their rights, not only how to sweep a broom, but it's not allowed to be put down, and they just take it. I tell them, why do you take it? Well, what else? We need to work. So that's my question in that career program. If you have a section in there that helps address racism, because we'd sure like to kind of have dialogue with you on that.
Absolutely. Interestingly enough, I grew up in Taber, Alberta, and did my education at the University of Alberta, and I saw exactly what you're speaking of. It was right there. The racism definitely in Southern Alberta. And I've also had a chance to work in Northern Alberta when I worked with Keanu College. And I'm not sure if money speaks in the community a little differently in Fort McMurray, and that's moved things forward. I'm not sure, but definitely a lot of opportunities as you go across the province. But the one thing that we have been talking about within the Alberta Aboriginal Construction Career Centre is working with the employers as well, because we recognize that there's a skill set issue that we need to give the students, or the workers, of course, to be successful, but then there's also the environment in which they work in. The one piece that NorQuest College, I think, has a great advantage in this area is that we have an intercultural center, intercultural education center that's been running at the college for the past 7 years. We actually do research on intercultural education, which includes Aboriginal intercultural education and inclusiveness. We have, it's an area that we're still learning a lot about, but we also have areas what we can contribute to the employers. So as part of the center, we are hoping to give instruction to employers so that they can better support their Aboriginal workers and help them be successful, and address, as you say, the racism that sometimes pops up within the different sites, and whether it's for Aboriginal workers or workers that are coming from outside of Canada as well. So it's definitely an issue, you're absolutely right, and one that we've had some pretty frank dialogue, and we're hoping to work with companies on.
This question is for Ashley, and I just want to thank you for sharing. It was really encouraging just to hear your story and see the pictures of your travels and hear what you're doing back home. I was wondering, from your experiences in Zambia and coming back to your First Nation community, and then also working with WorleyParsons, I was wondering what role private sector can play to help communities, whether they're First Nations or overseas, develop their communities sustainably. I know that there's a whole discussion in international development where private sector has been scrutinized because of their non-sustainable activities, and I'm just wondering, from your perspective, how can private sector play a more sustainable role in, I guess, critical places where they can intervene, as opposed to just, going in and building, a school or a drinking water facility and then leaving.
Since this is a pilot project, we've actually had a few hiccups in the road. It's been slow to get started. It's been interesting because I've done my work with an NGO and people who live and breathe international development work. So it's been a little bit of like a learning curve to kind of bring that education to engineers who are amazing at what they do, but sometimes it takes you have to go that extra step in order to kind of brief them about the international work and the sensitivity around it. It's been interesting working with the private sector in regards to sustainability, because anybody can go to Africa and sink a borehole. It's, you know, in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years, that water well, I've seen it when I was in Zambia, that they would sink in and there would be nobody there to fix it or to do another one, or the funds. So it's still brand new and we are in the beginning stages, but this is something that I will see through. I've seen the need firsthand in Zambia, how important it is to have sustainable water, because some of the communities I did visit did have boreholes that were already done by NGOs, but they, after a period of time, had already sunk in. So, and to answer your question, I think that this is still all brand new, and I think that with a little bit of training about the role that they can potentially have, and especially bringing Samson on board, like, this is so amazing for us, because it's not, we also get to bring Samson members back and kind of give them the whole bigger picture of sustainability and the issues that are faced worldwide, because it's no secret that here in Canada we also have our own issues of water. So I just want to thank you for that question. Hopefully I answered that.
I work as a trainer, and I think I'm largely self-taught, but everybody in the community can be a trainer and maybe has a responsibility to do so. So you have a lot of experience with youth, and with youth that perhaps don't have the proper attitude or don't have the proper background to be employed. So if there was 3 ideas that everybody in this room could take away with them today to motivate young people, can you tell me what they might be from your point of view?
For me, as far as motivating young people, as far as I think that there's 3 things that we have to do. One, we have to listen more. We as adults talk to young people and talk at young people a lot. I think we need to talk with young people. So I do think that we need to listen a bit more. I think that we need to show up. I think and what I mean by that is sometimes we need to humble ourselves and maybe go to their level. For example, video game. I'm not a gamer. I'm not a video game guy at all. I wasn't when I was a kid with, you know, I mean, we had Pong to start, but I just wasn't. My kids like the Wii and all. So, you know what, I go down and I try it. I'm horrible, but I just try to show up to do that with them. Now, I'm not saying that I'm the perfect guy, because I don't show up at other things, but I think that we need to show up for these young people. And I think that the word relentless, I think we need to be relentless. I think that we give up very easily on the young people we work with, and that we need to be relentless. I think that you do those things and it builds relationship. And I believe when you build relationship with young people, it's easier to motivate them. It's easier for them to trust what you're saying because you have that relationship. We put a lot of expectations or rules on young people. I believe that rules minus a relationship equals rebellion. And I believe that rules plus a relationship equals respect. So I think that we need to take that into consideration. So,
to really motivate young people, I have just a little story I want to tell. I have a girls' skating club that I meet with every single week, and I'm not a professional skater. It was just an opportunity that just kind of fell into my lap, and I accepted. I started with 7 girls, and now I have 40 who just wanted to have fun. And I think just being that support system, to be there with them, to hang out with them, and to, you know, high five them when they get off the bar, just to show that you really care. To think outside the box, to give them a bigger picture of everything that's outside of the community, because there's lots of First Nations youth who never ever really get to leave. So just to kind of provide that insight that, you know, there is a bigger world out there, and that it is possible to come from a community like Samson and to accomplish great things.
And I would say that it's important to really remind young people that there's a world of opportunity here in Alberta. Sometimes we can not see it, or it's maybe tough for the younger folks to see what really is out there for us. This is a time and place in this province for young people that can get the skills and get the motivation. The world is their oyster. So we constantly try to highlight what is it that's out there for them. As an institution, we're working to connect ourselves with business and industry like WorleyParsons so we can give them opportunities. So we're constantly trying to highlight what those opportunities are and get them to grab onto those opportunities. Thank you very much. I think it's time for lunch.